today. It's a scorcher. Yesterday was so hot here. And I recently filmed my quarterly update for June, and I've been reading such amazing books this year. I have been having probably one of the best reading years that I've had in a while. As an adult, I'm reading more books. I've already met my goal, but you know what I haven't been reading a lot of? Cozy mysteries. And I think the only cozy mysteries I've really read this year were for the video that I filmed where I compared 3 different cozy mysteries. And then I read Hot Pot Murder, which I hated. And then I read the second book from one of those books that I read in that cozy mystery series. So I have only read 5 this year. That is normally one of my most read genres. Whenever I feel like I'm in a reading slump or not enjoying it, I just pick up a cozy mystery. And I have a lot of them. I have DNF'd some this year, like within the first few pages. Because, I mean, let me be the first to tell you, they are not always readably well written. Like, even not, like, best written, they're just not readable for me. But I'm like, oh, they're so fun to read at the pool, at the beach. I just haven't really been reading any cozy mysteries. So I want to, in this video, get back to my roots. I currently realized that, one, I did a book haul, and I have a fair amount of cozy mysteries. I have 3 that are set in Nebraska, and that's going to be a different video. And then I had the next book in the Clambake Mystery series, which I don't know if I talk about a ton. It's absolutely currently my favorite cozy mystery series. This is like book 13 in it. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Was I fucking right? Or was I right? This has been probably of the ones that are still releasing books, this is my favorite. There was one story in here that I just wasn't vibing with, and I just never read that book. I bought it and I just never read it. But I'm excited to read this. I'll keep updating you with Julia. So it's fun because I'm going to read 2 from authors that I've already read and 2 from new authors. So this is book 13. I'm going to read book 3 by Shirley Damsgaard of the Ophelia and Abby mystery series. I read the second book. I read the first book last year, and then when we moved, I brought these 2 that I bought because I really like it. You guys may or may not know, witchy is like one of my favorite subsets of cozy mystery. Like paranormal is kind of where I like to go with that. This was a book from my mom that my sister got her for Easter, and she read it. She passed it to me. This is Tea and Treachery, a Tea by the Sea mystery, and it's the first book in it. And I think it's a fairly new release, and this it's 2020 by Vicki, Delany. So this is looks like a real book. It's almost like 300 pages, which I have gotten cozy mysteries in a more traditional book size format, and they're 100 pages, because these are mass market paperback versions. So we'll see how I feel about these 3, but I want to talk to you about the one I'm currently reading. So this book is called Spell for Trouble, and I'm liking it a lot. I'm about 50% of the way through, and we're following Alexandra as she kind of has had her life fall apart in New York, and she moves down to North or South Carolina, where her mom's family is. Her mom died when she was young, and she is staying with her aunt and her cousins to kind of reevaluate life. She has a good relationship with her dad, but she just wants to spend time with her family. She used to spend a lot of time there growing up. I think this book is by Esme Addison, which I'm excited about. I'm really enjoying the writing of this. For me, cozy mysteries are really make or break with 2 things. So one is our character is our heroine being competent? Is she just showing up places and finding clues to a mystery that have nothing to do with her? She was just in the right place at the right time. Or is she thinking, learning, using her specific skills from being a baker or a librarian, or in this case, a risk management officer who had a detective of a father, to figure things out? I also think having additional subplots helps the book not feel like you're just going from one place to another. That's been how I felt about some cozy mysteries this year. that I have read where it's just like we're just spinning our wheels trying to go from one place to another until it's time to reveal who did the murder at the end of the book, and I don't like that. So having something like witchiness really, I think, adds a level of like solving the mystery, because you're dealing with a whole other realm to this world, which I think really does help flesh out the story a little bit. And then I hate nothing more than when I'm reading a cozy mystery, so we're trying to have an amateur sleuth solve a problem, and everybody's mad at her for trying to solve the problem, and that's like the main conflict in the book. To me, that's a bad conflict, because our main character is an amateur sleuth, and that's why I'm reading the story, and I need the conflict to not be that people are mad that she's asking questions because she is concerned somebody died. So I think this book is really successful right now. I'm about 40% of the way in. We just have had it confirmed to us that Alexandra's family really is descended not only from witches, but from this story about the Mermaid of Warsaw, which is like an old folk tale in Poland that is actually true. And I like this twist. I mean, I'm sorry if you feel like this is a spoiler. The book is called A Spell for Trouble. You know they're going to be witches. I really did enjoy this. Obviously, you know that this is going to happen, so it's not like a twist. But you're really in Alexandra's head for a long time as she's seeing certain things that are foreshadowing, like, oh, that's like a weird piece of magic? That can't be right. I'm an adult. And you know that she's been like kind of struggling with this, like, am I real? Is magic real? Nobody's telling me anything. And I'm liking that. We have Alexandra, who has just gone back to stay with her family in Delany Bay, which is a small fishing town in North Carolina, and she's helping at her family's like apothecary shop. It does give me very much the Good Witch vibes, which is a TV show that I talk about a lot because I love it. Where it's just like they kind of have a shop where they sell like ointments and potions, and some of it's real and some of it's not. And I think this is going to go more in depth to explain the witchiness, but hasn't yet. There's only one other book in the series so far. I hope it's not getting canceled like all my faves are. But anyways, Alexandra's aunt had this altercation with somebody, and nobody knows why she really dislikes this person, but she has a very strong sense of loyalty, and this person betrayed her, she said. And she got very upset, and they had this confrontation, and later this person died via belladonna poisoning, and the police are like, obviously your aunt gave them the tea, and these are the berries in it, and Alexandra is like, absolutely not, my aunt would not do that. I know it seems weird, but it just doesn't seem like in her character, and this person has other enemies, and it'd be so easy to frame my aunt. And so she's discovering things, and one of the things that she's discovering is that there's another family in the town called the Wesleys, and they're like evil magic. And I will say, they've had one interaction with this man that turns out to be like a long-lost childhood friend, gives me like sexy Secret Garden vibes, and the tension is good. It's well written enough. Some of it's obvious, some of it's on the nose. I'm not saying this is like the next great American novel, but I'm having a really good time. And so I hope I'm not disappointed with the resolution of the story. And can already tell where we're trying to lean, like, just like love interest wise, and I just don't want her to date the detective. They always date the detective. I'm over that. I don't like that so much. I did a quick introduction about this new cozy mystery I was reading that I was really enjoying. I was about 40% of the way through. We were following Alexandra as she's kind of rediscovering her roots, her familial roots. Her family, you find out at like 40%, but it's early enough in the book, and I think it's pretty obvious by everything else in the book that you knew that this was going to happen. So she is kind of like, her family is related to this Mermaid of Warsaw. She has this long-standing history, and there's other magical families in Belmy where she lives, and she was kind of kept from this for her whole life, and she doesn't know why, and I'm not going to spoil why. But a murder has taken place, obviously, and her aunt is accused of the murder, obviously, because that's how a lot of cozy mysteries start out, especially with, like, the very first book is, like, either the business, a family member, or our main character is suspected of the murder, and that's why they feel that they have to investigate. um, which I think is a pretty good, like, narrative element to get somebody invested into it. And we follow the story of her trying to solve it. I think this book went a little long for me. I just finished it this morning, and I just felt like there was a lot to do. I also feel like maybe there were a little too many red herrings for me, because at some point I was like, I don't think we know who could possibly do this. And there's too many red herrings. Like, there's too many obvious people that they're trying to get us to think, but it can't be that person. But I really like this book, and in terms of cozy mysteries, I don't rate cozy mysteries in stars. I give them a tier ranking, because to me, cozy mysteries, even if they're my absolute favorite thing, I just don't think they're 5 stars. Like, I have a hard time justifying that, and maybe that's my own internal, like, snootiness, but it's hard for me. And I have S tier cozy mysteries. This for me right now is falling in B tier. It can certainly move up. It's certainly one I want to keep reading. I liked the writing just in general. Sometimes I think I talked about this, but this year I've started a few cozy mysteries that I can't even get past the writing. Like, they're just not well written, or they're just like they're just poorly written, or the characters are just like real pick-me's about everything. And I don't think I've gotten more than 30 pages into any of them. The other thing I liked about the story was magic is a system that we're learning. Unlike, like, fantasies and stuff like that, the magic system here is not going to be elaborate. But they did set up some rules, and there is already a council set up, so there isn't going to be, like, magic can't always deus ex machina, like, anything. So that's a book in this. So next I want to read either Torn or Sunder or Tea and Treachery, and I think I want to read Torn Asunder. I think I'm feeling a little bit like an author that I've already read before is the way to go. I still also have The Trouble with Witches by Shirley Damsgaard, and I realize that this is not the right one. This is the 3rd book in the series, and I need to be reading the 2nd book in the series, which I have somewhere that I just have to find. So I probably won't read this one in this video, just to edit that in. But Torn Asunder follows Julia as she's with her family's lobster shack, like lobster boil place. I don't know. This is, like I said, I think 13 in the series. I've read all of them except for one because I didn't like the beginning of it, but I bought it. This is definitely my current, like, favorite series. It's definitely A tier. It's not S tier. But I have bought all of them and anxiously await them when they come out. So I did read like 2 pages of this, and honestly, these books are what got me through studying the WSET level 3. Not for nothing, didn't pass that, but what's happening in Torn Asunder is Julia's friend Zoe is getting married on their little Winsome Island, which is where they do the clam bakes. And somebody showed up. It was supposed to be this, like, large but pretty private party because they all had to be shipped out. They all had to take the ferry out. And everybody who, like, Julia was both the wedding, like, helped the event space manager and also the maid of honor. And Zoe knew all the guests. And somebody kind of showed up that they didn't recognize. And that person got killed because it's a cozy mystery. So either, like, a new person gets killed or somebody who you, like, that's barely there, every story gets filled. This is interesting because obviously these books, there's 13 of them, but they are taking place, like, she really said, like, 14 years ago when I officially moved back home. And that's something I like about this series, is it's not like every book is like every other month. Like, sometimes the books are set like 6 months apart or even a year apart. And so you can kind of yada 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 some relationships without having to see a lot of boring downtime, which I like. But because I just discovered this series last year, I was like, oh my god, it's been like, or maybe she said 12 years, it's been like 10 to 14 years. Because in the first book, her niece is quite young. And in this book, her niece is like a junior in high school. And I was like, oh, it's really been a lot of time. The first book, I think, is crazy. I just remembered what happened in the first book. So, I have 2 theories about what I think is happening. So if you don't want to be spoiled, that's fine. But I did put in this book, that in this video description, that there might be some spoilers. And so I'm going to present my 2 theories about what I think is going to happen, and maybe I'll tell you if I was right or wrong. So my first thought is that this man that we don't know is Zoe's dad, because we don't know Zoe's dad. Zoe had a pretty hard life. Her mother was murdered by the boyfriend she was living with. If I'm recalling correctly, I'm pretty sure she does not know who her father is. And so my thought is that this man was looking through his life. It seems like he's kind of been a bit of a con man, and he came to visit Zoe before the wedding, or reached out to Zoe before then, and Zoe was like, actually, I'm getting married, pregnant, and it would be nice to have some familial connections. You know, even though I'm building my family, I want some family. And he reached out to her, and she invited him into town and came to the wedding, but she's having some second thoughts about it, because she's being very tight-lipped. Like, this man did interact with Zoe before the wedding, but she didn't tell them that immediately, and she was being very vague about it. She was like, oh, I guess I saw him once. I didn't really have a very long conversation with him. So we don't know who he is. I don't think Zoe killed him, though. That's not really the journey I see for Zoe. I think maybe Zoe's boyfriend, if this theory is true, I think Zoe's ex-boyfriend, Derek, he's kind of slimy, he's kind of odd. I think he killed her, or his girlfriend, who looks suspiciously like Zoe, and we know he's never gotten over Zoe, meant to kill Zoe and killed him, because he was sitting at the bride's table, even though nobody knew who he was. This was at the rehearsal dinner. My other theory is that there is a new character in this book who's a waiter. His name is Jordan, and because of how cozy mysteries are, when new characters are introduced, sometimes they're the killer or sometimes they're the victim, and you're just adding new people in to like make it interesting. And because this plot requires like a lot of summer work, that's a great way to constantly be introducing characters. And I don't mean to sound like it's so formulaic like that. Like, it does differ, but it's always important to note. And because Jordan is also from LA, which is where the victim is from, I'm thinking that this man might either be Jordan's dad or somebody he's running from. And he came to kind of like hunt down Jordan and his mom, because they just moved from LA to Maine, kind of on a whim. But I also think if that's true, that Jordan and Zoe are half-siblings. And I think that that is probably true either way. If like, really the connection is via Jordan and not via Zoe, like he didn't necessarily know about Zoe or whatever, I'm thinking that I don't know who killed him. I think Derek is the best choice because he's weird, he's giving weird vibes. We're spending a lot of time with him, but not so much so that it's like, oh, he's a killer kind of thing. Just, we're getting to spend some time with him. I really am enjoying parts of this. I do think that this is not as well written as A Spell for Trouble in general, but I am enjoying this kind of bottle episode-esque thing because there's this terrible storm, and because they're all trapped on the island, and because, of course, in Cozy Mysteries, people are pretty close with law enforcement, usually somebody's dating them. There's Jamie, who is, Jamie and Pete, they are both, like, Bars Harbor police, and then Julia is now dating Tom, who's, like, the state police. And so they're there. And Julie is a fucking amateur sleuth who solves every murder that's ever happened in this place. And so they're like investigating because they couldn't get the body back before the storm hit, and now everybody who's like a real suspect is locked on the island, I would assume. And so they're trying to figure out as much as they can before people come to pick up the body and before the wedding tomorrow, because they need to know, obviously. And so I like that. I read another cozy mystery that really had that kind of aspect to it. It was, I think, the first Alex Erickson one, the like vanilla spice latte death one. I'll put the picture here. That one all took place at a Halloween party, and so everything had to be solved before the Halloween party was over. And I'm sure I've read other ones that use this, like we're all on a boat, or we're, Death on the Niles, like that. It's one of us, you know what I mean? I like that. I think it gets rid of, like, one of my least favorite parts of poorly written cozy mysteries, which Barbara Ross doesn't do, I feel, is unjustified driving to different locations for no reason other than to move the plot along, which I know sounds dumb, but so many cozy mysteries that I read that are not very good, that I don't rank particularly highly, or that I just DNF, is like, oh, let's drive here. Oh, let's drive here. Oh, let's drive here. And that's how I felt about Hot Pot Murder got, because it was just like, we're just driving to different locations for no reason. And so, you don't have the option to drive every which way. So I'm excited to read this. I'll probably finish it tonight, although I do have to read my book for my book club with my mom. But kill two birds with one stone. So I'm going to try to take a picture like this. So I'm not going to tell you how right I was, but one of my predictions was kind of right. If that's a spoiler for you, I'm sorry. I think if you are or were an experienced cozy mystery reader, you could have seen that one coming. So, not super sorry. But one thing I will say is that I was not expecting this to be the final book in the series, and I'm pretty sure that it is, because the last book, or the last chapter, says 5 years later, and then it's like all happily ever after for everybody. And I guess that means another book could be coming out. Like, I could be wrong, but there was a lot of parts of this book about halfway through, and I think I might have said it in my last clip, I was like, I wonder if this is going to be the last book. It's like book 13, and there's a lot of like, oh, we're happy now because, and oh, things have been different, and I've been coming, it's been like 10 years or 12 years since the start of the first book, and a lot of things are different, and a lot of things have changed, and we're getting a lot of resolutions on a lot of things. And I was like, oh, this is kind of writing like this is the end vibes. And I didn't know that, but there's nothing that I could see on it that says that this is the last book in the series. But I was pretty mad when I read that, because this is, like I said, my current favorite series that's still being published. And I know that there's always new books coming out. I think I've been a fan long enough for the past 3 new books to come out, maybe. Maybe just 2, but I really do like this series, so now it's more important than ever to find a new series that I like. So, I know that Shirley, what would I rate this one? I will say, after reading Spell for Trouble, the other book, that book was definitely better written than this book. Like, there are some pieces about it where it's like, I feel like sometimes we're including stuff that you don't need to include. There's, like, and then we all walked that way, and then we all did this. It's like, it's okay. Like, you can just imagine it's fading to black. You guys all said you're going somewhere. It's fine. And, I don't know, sometimes I find this language to be slightly over-descriptive. That's something I have found with a couple cozy mysteries that I have picked up, where it's like, oh my gosh, why did you just use 9 adjectives to describe this girl's face? I mean, it's too many. Too many. So, I don't think this is as well written as, like, the most recent cozy mystery I read, but I did like it. I would still say, I mean, this is a book that I have spent money on multiple times over, so this is as a series, my A tier ranking as a series to recommend. But in terms of this individual book, I'd probably put it in like a B minus. So now I don't know to start reading the Shirley Damsgaard one. Like I think I keep saying, I need to find the second one because this is the third one. Although I maybe could just jump right to the second one. I don't know. These are a finished series, and this is the Ophelia and Abby mystery series. And okay, friends, good news. We're bathed in late evening light here. It's Sunday night, and I accidentally managed to stay up all night for the first time in about 2 years last night. Couldn't get to sleep. Came out here, and you think, oh, did you read? No. I just watched like 2.5 mid-seasons of How I Met Your Mother all night. Fell asleep on the couch. Had to go to book club with my mom and my sister. And I didn't finish the book, and I didn't tell them. I only read like the whole first part and then the last chapter. So 52% of the book. And I just lied right through it. So we can do hard things. Don't worry. What? Is that funny?
I heard it in the voice. I was like, and through God, all things are possible. Like that kind of thing.
Look, we can do hard things. Sometimes you can sit on your front porch really tired and lie bold-faced to your mom and sister and say, yeah, it was 3 stars. I felt medium about it. I didn't finish it, but you leave out that part. And I'll probably leave this cut out of the edit, but I don't think they watched this. So, we are about halfway through the correct Shirley Damsgaard. If you recall, I was using the other book in the other intros because I couldn't find this book. It was in my pool bag. I'm on page 113, and there's like 288 pages in this book, so about halfway. I have a couple theories, and kind of like the Torn Asunder, I will just tell you if one of my theories was kind of correct. I won't confirm which one, or, if I'm wrong as well. So, this is the Abby and Ophelia murder mysteries. This is another witchy one, and this is from an author I've read before, and I'm liking it. I think that there's a much darker attempt at a darker tone in this set of cozy mysteries than the Clambake one, and even honestly the other witchy one I was reading. Like, we're book 2 in, and we're already getting a lot of like, there's a serial killer, there's a dark man, there's prophecies, and there's like, we don't know what's happening. The tone is just overall a little heavier, or it's attempting to be. I think it's succeeding, but we're following our main girl, Ophelia. She moved to this really small town in Iowa, I think, in the last book, and she goes back to Des Moines in this book, and she is kind of haunted by her best friend's murder, which she was suspected of because she saw saw a vision of it, and she was there before the police were, and she couldn't explain why she was there, and she's kind of in this middle chunk, she was in Des Moines for a library convention, and she ran into like a large cast of characters that we had heard about from the previous book. I do think that this book requires you to remember more from the first book than I do. There's a lot of names. But I just am kind of filling them in, and there's enough summary in it. I think you can get along with it if you read the first book. If you didn't read the first book, I would try to read the first one. So we're trying to figure out who killed Brian and who the dark one or the light and the shadow are in this. Because she met 2 men in Iowa, or in Des Moines, which is in Iowa, but Des Moines. I know. She met two men in Des Moines, and one of them is like the light and one of them is the shadow, according to her grandmother. Is this summary making any sense? I don't know. I only slept for 2.5 hours last night. And I refuse to take a nap because then I'll oversleep, and then I won't be able to wake up for work tomorrow. But I am going to finish this book tonight, even though we spent all day watching more seasons of How I Met Your Mother, because then I stayed up all night, was too sleepy to do anything but sit on my couch. And we have such a nice couch. Isn't it so nice? What's happening? Okay, I will say this. I remember what's happening. So, Ophelia... okay. Ophelia, at the start of this book, is going to the library convention back to Des Moines. She's nervous. She had a hard time in Des Moines because her best friend was murdered there. That's why she moved back in with her grandmother in her small town. and she doesn't want to go confront the officer that immediately suspected her and seemed like he was really on to knowing a secret about her, because she obviously is a witch, obviously, and that's what she was trying to hide, not that she was a murderer. And we know that a serial killer is the person. Somebody. We are laying down the groundwork. And then she comes back, and her grandmother is like trying to stop factory farming because of reasons. They're trying to get in like a new hog plant, and she's at the protest, and she just found the third dead body that she's ever seen in her life at this event because she was having this prophecy. Does that make enough sense? I hope so. Editing Connor, you can hate me all you want. That's what you're getting. These are my predictions. One, we know that we're getting a little bit more into the like magic system of this world. It's a lot more kind of like, I would say, traditional folkloric, maybe like folkloric, specifically connected to like Norse mythology in this story. So there's a lot of runes, there's a lot of crystals, there's a lot of scrying candles. It's a lot of ritual stuff versus, say, like the book I read earlier in this series where it was like specifically spell work, or in some other more witch-centric cozy mysteries where it's just kind of like vibes are the magic system, and you're like, okay, whatever. So there's a little bit more rules here. And we know that she's going to have self-sacrifice. And there's a lot of like her grandmother talking about like maybe not being with her while she solves this murder, or having to do something she's scared of. So I think that her grandmother is going to be killed off in this book. I don't know. Okay. Who do I think is the light and the shadow? So I think the reporter guy from Des Moines is like the bad one. I think the two police officers are not. I think the guy, Kukumo. Man, I should have written down what I wanted to say before I started filming and kicked my husband out of the living room in our one-bedroom apartment. Let's see. So I think Charles, who's the guy she met in town, who's a freelance photographer, which to me just sounds like somebody who's out of work, but I don't know. Freelance photographer, his job is hard. I think he is a bad person. I don't know if he necessarily murdered this person. I also don't have confirmation about who this body is, so it might be him too. But he's a new person, so he's suspicious to me. I think the old detective that she has like a hard time with is actually a good guy, and I think Weasley Beasley is the serial killer. I don't know if we're going to get the answer to that in this. But I will update you. I am enjoying this. I have the second book. Would I buy the third? I have the third book. Would I buy the next few in the series? I don't know. There's only 7, I believe, in this series, so I guess that was really all I wanted to say. I hope it wasn't super confusing. I'm trying to figure out what that guy's name is. Hey everybody, I'm back here either, depending on how the footage looked, giving you my final update or just a brief summary of Charmed to Death by Shirley Damsgaard. So just a little brief reminder about this. This is a witchy story, and this is the second in a 7-book series, I believe. So last night I was trying to figure out who. I made a prediction about who I think I thought somebody was. There are kind of 2 figures that we're trying to figure out who's who that we saw from a vision. I thought it was pretty obvious who the person was, not necessarily in a good or bad way. Sometimes with cozy mysteries, it's like pretty clear to us, but it's how are you going to discover it? It's kind of like when you watch an episode of Monk, if anybody watches that, where you know who did it, but you're trying to figure out where they slipped up so Monk can prove it. Which can be fun. It's a different challenge when you're reading it. Or there's multiple puzzles that have to be put together and you're trying to see how they all fit. This tonally is much darker than the previous witch book I read in this video by Esme Addison. That's like a little bit less spooky. This is already book 2. We're already talking about like hexing and murder. We've already connected it to the Salem witch trials, obviously, because that's what all of these books are trying to do. We're already connecting it to like a witch hunter. That's what's going on here. Maybe, maybe not. Overall, I am still interested in the series. I will read the third one. I don't know if I would buy the ones after that. And this book is the oldest one that I'm definitely reading. This was published in 2006. And while I don't think it was super 2006, there is parts of it that I just feel are kind of like Oh, that's right. So there's like this conversation with her friend Darcy, who's like, "Oh no, is the serial killer that killed Brian gonna come after me?" And she's like, "You're the most heterosexual person I know," because that person was specifically killing gay men. I think I don't really understand, but it's like, who says that, and what does that even mean? It was very clunky, that, and specifically about like queer people, but I don't find this book to be like problematic or really uncomfortable about like, sometimes I pick up an old cozy mystery and read it and there's a lot of uncomfortable stuff about like people's, some of my first purchases that I made here. So we have one more cozy mystery and then we will be done with this video. I might need a little bit of a cozy mystery break, which is kind of crazy. These used to be some of my favorite books to read, and I would be reading them back to back. But I've just been reading so many great titles this year, and I am so excited for so many different books that I kind of want to read something else. But I am going to go ahead and pick up Treachery, Tea for Treachery, Tea and Treachery. I think that's by far the longest book I'm reading for this video, because not only is it, I think, page-wise the longest, but the format of it is like a regular-sized book. And I'll let you know, overall, I would say this is a 3. I think I basically always rate these 3 on Goodreads, and right now this series is sitting in probably B tier, so I think that's with all of them at this point. I have the second book by Esme Addison, so those could be moving up to A tier. This is not quite A tier for me yet, but I do have the third book in this, so maybe I'll do like a witch off cozy mystery video in the future. But until that day, I will see you guys in my next bit. Maybe I'll get a good chunk of the mysteries, and I'm kind of sad because I hate this. Tea and Treachery is a book, it's a Tea by the Sea mystery. It's a book my mom gave to me after she read it, and I've read 25 pages of it, and usually cozy mysteries in my mind are in like tiers of so bad. There's also the so bad and ridiculous they're good, but usually that is reserved for like, I feel like a lot of people will say something so bad it's good. I feel like so many people will say it's so bad it's good for a lot of things that are not so bad it's good. But I cannot get into this. It usually takes me anywhere from like 2 to 5 days to read a cozy mystery, depending on like how much time I'm reading it or whatever. They're not usually particularly long. The plot lines are fairly basic and simple to follow. And in this one, we are following a woman. I do not know the main character's name because it was so confusing. I think it's Lily, but it could also be Rose. I'll explain why in a minute. Who I believe recently bought a tea room on property in Cape Cod, which I love Cape Cod. We used to go camping there a lot as a kid. So I have a lot of fond memories, and I love a sleepy new northern town. And you can tell that they're setting up this plot that having people coming to the area to buy like a lot and make this a really built up space is going to be possibly like a through line throughout the series, if not like the main plot for this book. We have a neighbor slash grandma, I cannot tell, of somebody. I think our main character, her name is Rose. She's kind of a huge bitch, and not in a like, she's tough but she knows what's up kind of way, and just like a she's being really rude kind of way. And the best friend. I don't even think we've gotten to the dead body. The first 25 pages, I could not suss out who was happening. I swear the book was like changing POVs the entire time. We were going from first to third person, and that's why I cannot tell who the main character is, because I swear they kept saying everybody's name multiple times over, and I just didn't understand what was happening. Now, I have no problem DNFing books. Usually I like to be a little bit further in. Like, usually if I stopped reading a book this early, it would be either like a softie enough or something I would come back to. I wouldn't necessarily spend the time recording a piece of it. But because I talked so much about the 4 books I was going to read in this video, and this is a book that I like intended to read fully, I haven't DNF'd a book in a while, I feel like, except for Beautiful Monsters, my 2014 video, and there's some books I've like stopped reading, but it hasn't been like a hard I'm never coming back to this. And it's been a while for a cozy mystery that I've read 25 pages of. I think I tried recently to read, there's a series about like an Irish village, a murder in an Irish town, and that one I couldn't read because it was very clearly, to my mind, a English person writing phonetically what they think a bad Irish accent is, and so I couldn't read it for personal reasons. But that was in like page 1. The last time I read a cozy mystery that I thought was like this confusing, I read this series, or I read 1 or 2 of the books in this series about books, about a cozy mystery about like a bookshop that was in a town, and it was kind of witchy, and I think I've only read 2 of those, and I did find that one also confusing, but less confusing than this, especially for being the first in the series and just the first 20 pages. So I'm not going to torture myself trying to make myself read this. We've had some great wins in this video. Like I said, I really enjoyed, I should grab it actually. Like I said, we've had some good wins in this video. I read the first in this new series, an Enchanted Bay mystery, and I really enjoyed it. I think that's probably going to be my new A-tier series. And the library had the second book, so I can go ahead and take that out. I swear to God, midday on Thursdays is always when they are servicing the like yards and stuff, so sorry about it. And so I have that out from the library. We got to finish a series, which I was both sad about, but happy to catch that real reaction on video. And the Clam Bake Mystery series, I do believe, will be over. I am still on Barbara Ross's mailing list, or her email list, so we'll know soon enough. And this was my current favorite series that I like was keeping updates with. And I liked the Shirley Damsgaard Charms, whatever the other book was, enough. And I already have the 3rd book in the series, so I think I gave these all the hopefully moving up to A series. I don't want to judge after reading this one book in a series where I would rank that, but I think I have some good wins, and so I don't feel the pressure to be like, I have to finish this if I'm going to dislike it. And maybe I would like it if I kept writing it, or maybe I was just maybe not reading in an environment where I was understanding it. But again, these aren't like confusing, complex books with magic systems and a ton of characters